Today I'm gonna be showing you all how to make your own carbon fiber parts and repair them. So this is the main part of a wing I made for the truck. It's kind of hard to see under the epoxy, but there's a couple imperfections I'm trying to cover up. And when I got sanded, it kind of wasn't completely straight. So I'm gonna get this hardened epoxy sanded down, and then hopefully get everything sanded and ready for a few more layers of carbon fiber. Now it's time to lay some carbon on this. Got a little dusty, but yeah, gonna toss some carbon on it. Figured I'd put it in the shed, let it sit for a couple days, and then we'll cut it to shape, and hopefully everything turns out well. I know I look like a bum. It's like 100 degrees right now, so don't mind that. All right, so we're set up. I got it raised up a little bit. I'm hoping that I can kind of work the carbon underneath just to fit the shape. I'm gonna clean it because it's covered with junk. All right, I did end up flip-flopping it around just so it would sit. It was sitting kind of twisted, but I believe this is as level as I'm going to get it. But yeah, did another light sand and just hit it with some bug and tar remover. Don't mind the mess. But yeah, just gonna mix up some epoxy and lay the carbon. All right, I haven't even opened it yet. I've had it for a few weeks, but actually a few months now. But yeah, this is what it looks like when you get it. Got 2 rolls. The foam inside of it. Well, yeah, let's see how this is going to go on. Let's see if I can extend this up. So this is pretty much the same stuff I got before, and it's just the right size. I am going to try, I'm going to do 2 rolls, and I'm going to try flip-flopping the weave just to give it a little bit more rigidity. At least that's what they say to do. I'm really not I really don't know what I'm talking about, but that's what I've heard. So this stuff, you can only get it in so many different sizes. So I'm gonna cut off the excess just so I don't have, it should make it a little bit easier if I don't have a bunch of extra carbon flip-flopping around. And I'm going to keep, the new unused carbon for the next project. Who knows? Might need some little 1-foot pieces or something like that. All right, this is the stuff I'm using. You can see it. That's just a 2-part equal halves. So let's see, I'm gonna do fill it up to the 4, and with the other stuff I'm gonna fill it up to the 8. Just be real careful when you do it. There we go, right there. Be sure to put the cap back on the stuff because you accidentally bump into it, it'd be one heck of a mess to clean. Oh, just like that. Yeah, this next stuff is get an interesting consistency. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Probably should have made a smaller batch. It's gonna be a pain to get it mixed well. There we go, right there. And you can kind of see the two different colors. You just want to mix it until it's all one consistency. You really don't want to mess this part up, because if you do, you got to go back to square one. Actually, further back than square one. Trying to get all this stuff off would be a nightmare. There we go, no air bubbles. I'm gonna go ahead and get gloved up. Just using a normal cheap Harbor Freight paintbrush. I'm gonna toss it when I'm done. Here's one tip. So this is just wide enough to fit. And what I've been doing to get it to fit right, it's kind of hard to see. But every time you brush it, it moves this last sewn edge ever so slightly. So I've just been working that to the very edge of the material. So hopefully the weave is going to be good and straight. So far it's looking really good. I mean, this is pretty much done. I'm just doing the last little bit. Really my only concern is these corners are looking a little bit worse than what I was planning, but we'll see. If it's just the corners and the top of it still looks just like that, I'm gonna be good with it. All right, 2 layers are on. I'm just gonna let it dry for a couple days, trim the excess, and put it on the pickup truck. Here we go, a couple days later, good and dry. I'm gonna put another, not a full layer, but you can see on the sides how it's you know, not as shiny. Normally what happens is the you know, just gravity kind of works it off and down, and then instead of it being perfectly smooth, you can kind of hear it, as opposed to where it's good and deep with the epoxy. So gonna add a little more epoxy, then let it dry, and it should be good to go. So just put a little more epoxy on it, and that should take care of those rough edges. It looks like I did get a little more debris in it, but so far it's looking pretty good, especially for, you know, something done at the house. All right, so here we are a few days later. I probably should have went a little bit thicker on that second coat of epoxy, but I'm gonna let it ride. I mean, it turned out way better than I was expecting. But I did end up finding an issue, which I kind of expected. So there's a little bit of an air gap on both sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and show y'all. Not sure how easy this is gonna be to see, but it's not perfectly flush right there. Then on the other side, it's even worse. There's probably, you know, 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch gap right there, but I got a solution for it. All I'm going to do is I'm gonna mix up some epoxy. I'm just gonna fill this void with epoxy, and then fill this other void with epoxy, let it dry, and it should be good. The rest of it turned out great though. All I gotta do is once the third layer of epoxy is dry, I just gotta trim off these edges, then we'll be good to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut up some pieces of carbon and mix it in with this epoxy. Not sure if it really does anything, but it makes me feel better knowing that there's, you know, little pieces of carbon in the epoxy. I feel like that'd make it a little bit stronger. So I just got some little strands out the trash, and all I do is get the same scissors I used to cut it. Just trim little pieces. I don't know if you could see on the camera, but once you cut it, it kind of just turns into these little teeny tiny pieces. Go ahead and start mixing it. Hopefully this works. I'm gonna try doing it without making too much of a mess. Alright, that ought to be plenty. I'm probably gonna grab a shop towel and dab up the rest of it. Now it's time for the other side. It's gonna be tricky with the camera right there. I'm left-handed. No! All right. So this epoxy is dried. I did, on this one I had to use a little ear plug. I forgot I had the existing holes, and of course the epoxy kept running out. But that's good. The only downside is I had some epoxy run out, and I'm gonna have to sand this down now, which I really don't want to do because the finish turned out so well, but I'm gonna have to do something. But before I do that, I'm going to tape off the top so I don't mess it up anymore, and I'm going to cut all this little extra stuff off so it's actually a wing. Alright, now that it is taped off, this is all you need to get the carbon trimmed down. Obviously, a really good respirator. Really don't want to be breathing any carbon particles in. Some gloves, because, you know, don't want to be absorbing this stuff into your skin. And really all you need to cut it, or all I use to cut it, is a Dremel and some cutoff discs. And then I also got an orbital sander I'm going to use just to make it extra smooth. And one last thing I do is I'm gonna take this outside. Obviously I'm gonna use this fan, and I'm gonna have the airflow blowing across it, and then at the other end of the workbench outside I'm gonna have my shop vac, so it's gonna be sucking on one end and then blowing on the other. So hopefully all the dust and debris will get, you know, drawn across and then sucked into the shop vac. And that should make it safer. There's still going to be a lot of dust, but it's going to take care of most of it. So before I keep rambling, let's take this outside. All right, got everything set up. One thing I forgot to mention, always wear some good safety glasses too. You don't want any of this dust or particles in your eyeballs. But here's how I set up the shop vac. Just have it running through the fence to suck up any debris, and I get the fan down there blowing all the debris that way. So yeah, I'm gonna flip this over. I'm gonna set up the tripod, and I think I'm just gonna try keeping the same edge that was there. I'm just gonna use that as a template, and then hopefully cut this through without making a mess of it. luckily I had this little handsaw laying around, and it did a fine job. It did way better than I expected. I thought I was gonna have to run to the store and pick up another one of these cutoff, you know, whatever they are, little cutoff adapters. But yeah, I'm gonna take the orbital sander and get these edges as smooth as I can. Then I'm probably gonna sand the sides just because they are a little rough. But yeah. Alright, so I got the bottom sanded, I got the sides sanded. I'm gonna see if I can get this extra epoxy off. And hopefully, I don't know, I'm still debating on sanding the whole thing or not. I think I might. I think I'm just gonna go over the whole thing. I got some 120, some 220, some 600. I think I also got some well, hopefully I got some 800 and 1200. But if not, I'll just run to the store probably tomorrow. But yeah, so I'm gonna start sanding and see if I get this thing perfect. So it's looking like this is as good as it's going to get today. I thought I had 8 or 1200 grit sandpaper, but I only have 600. But instead of buffing it, I think I'm gonna put a clear coat. Because look, you put a little bit of water and wipe it, that carbon comes right back. So I think I'm just gonna clean it real good and then hit it with some clear coat and call it a day. All right, everything's sanded. The only clear I got. Yeah, I think that's gonna work just fine. Cool. Well, that's that. I'm gonna let this sit for the night. Hopefully it gets a little more clear, but even if it doesn't, I'm good with this. I mean, that's shiny enough, or at least for me. Well, paint's dried, and I'm gonna let it ride. Out in the sun, it looks pretty all right. I'm gonna call that good enough. I just gotta re-drill the mounting holes and toss it on. Now that it's drilled out, I could clean up the end plates and toss them on. Before putting on these end plates, I guess I ought to hit them with a little bit of polish. See if I get them, you know, they're kind of a mirror, but let's see if we can get them more of a mirror. Just gonna use this bench grinder with a buffer wheel and some of this Jax Wax metal polish. End plates are on. Just time to toss it on the truck.